Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast, as we are now going to be getting into our weekly NFL Panic Meter. This is an exercise we do every week, going through some of the most prominent teams in the NFL that lost this past weekend, and we'll be rating on a scale of 1 to 10 how nervous their fans should be. For those of you who haven't been here before, on the 1 side is no worries at all, and 10 is hitting that panic button. So, getting into it here, first team we have, we're going to start with the Monday Night Football games, the Seattle Seahawks. They came into this game against the Lions 3-0, and ultimately, they competed very well. Now, there was definitely, a case to be made that I do feel like to some degree, there's a couple ways to look at it. The Seahawks could have won this game if they had more of their playmakers on defense healthy for it. There's also very clearly, at least in my opinion, a little bit of a talent differential on these rosters, and maybe that's unfair to say. I mean, the Seahawks are genuinely a good team. I think that it's tough that, they haven't really had a signature win. All of that being said, though, I still feel like they are in a great position, all things considered. They have the winning record up to this point. They are playing in an NFC West division that really nobody has taken the reins yet. Now, the 49ers would still be my bet to win the division, but they have a whole lot of injuries going on there. The Rams are extremely depleted. The Arizona Cardinals, who we're going to be getting into later in this list as well, they are really struggling up to this point in the season. That I think the Seahawks are sitting pretty well. I have them at a 3. I don't think that there's any reason for a panic. There's maybe, a little bit of nerves of, we still haven't seen them go up and beat a great team up to this point. They have had 3 very easy wins along that road. I mean, they go to overtime against the Patriots team that is one of the worst in the league. But, again, I don't think that it's anything you need to panic about. I think all things considered, Seahawks fans should be kind of cooling. But knowing that you're not the best team in your division definitely isn't ideal. The other Monday night game, the Miami Dolphins, this is a situation where I had them at a 9 last week. I guess technically they're still there because they haven't done anything. They haven't hit that panic button yet. And technically speaking, I mean, they're still alive in this whole conversation for 2024, but in order to take steps in the right direction, they have to make a move at quarterback. They can't continue to roll out there, at least in my opinion, with Tyler Huntley and Mike White and Skylar Thompson and the mediocrity, and mediocrity is probably being generous, that they have in that quarterback room. Now, we'll see if maybe there's a second week adjustment with Huntley. You saw him sort of he got yelled at by Tyreek Hill about throwing it in front of him and giving more, playable deep shots for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those are things, Huntley ended up overthrowing Tyreek when he did take the deep shot, but that just shows me clearly at least he has the arm talent. I still don't love the fit of Huntley in this Dolphins offense. I think they can do better. I think there are a number of different options, whether it's buying low on one of these backup quarterbacks across the NFL or literally just going and signing Ryan Tannehill, who I think could do a fine job in that Dolphins offense. Now, maybe a little bit faster for him in comparison to the games that he played with Tennessee before, where it was a lot of slow developing play action throws and stuff along those lines. Dolphins a whole lot quicker, but I don't know. I'm willing to give Huntley another week to see if maybe he can put things together. But ultimately, I think the Dolphins are in a very bad position right now. They don't have an answer at quarterback. They don't know if Tua is going to play later on this season. He is hoping to, but that's a whole different conversation itself. They lose to one of the worst teams in the NFL in the Titans this past weekend. So all things considered, I think that, Dolphins fans should be very panicked. I have them at a 9. Now, their division rival, the Buffalo Bills, also suffered a loss, their first loss of the season on Sunday Night Football against the Ravens. Now, I think the Bills, all things considered, there's some nerves there about the fact that some of their fatal flaws were exposed, and I don't know if it's fatal necessarily in the sense that once they get Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard back, their two-star linebackers, that maybe they can, be better equipped to face the run. But, they were just gashed on the ground on Sunday night, resulted in a 35-10 loss. And on the other side as well, definitely a lack of dynamic ability from their playmakers. So there are real issues with that Bills offense, or Bills roster as a whole. I still think that they are a well-coached team. Josh Allen is still a top three, top four quarterback in the league. And I think that they can still pretty comfortably win the AFC East. Has not been a lot of competition. We just talked about the Dolphins. We're about to talk about the Jets. They are still atop the division despite this loss, and I think that they are still the best team there. So I have them at a 3 on the panic meter. Speaking of the New York Jets, I have them at a 5. It's not, the house is burning right now. They end up losing 10-9 against the Denver Broncos at home. That's a very tough loss, especially considering the fact that the offense has still not gotten to the place where they were anticipating it should be, at least what the long-term goal is. To be fair, we all knew that this was going to take a little bit of time, but now you have other issues popping up. And as Rodgers put it, I'm talking about this whole drama that's breaking out about the cadence situation, and Robert Saleh said we may need to change things. Aaron Rodgers said that this is a little bit more of an anomaly. I am more so on the side of Rodgers with this, that it's kind of, you brought in Aaron Rodgers, you spent big on him. He is the offensive system. And this idea that Saleh is going to talk about, Rodgers needs to change the way that he does his cadence. They literally got a touchdown in week 1 based off of a, Rodgers hard count and hitting Allen Lazard down the field. So I think that was a little bit of a crazy statement from Saleh. I think that there is still a lot of talent on that offense, on that defense, that they should be okay, but everything we're hearing behind the scenes as well does still feel like it has that Jets dysfunction behind it. That part of it is a little bit concerning to me. So I think that all things considered, they're very much still alive in this season. I think that they're going to be an 8-9 win team, maybe a 10-win team. They're going to be walking that line of being in the playoff hunt, maybe stealing, I think, a wild card spot. I don't think that they edge out the Bills for the division title. If you disagree in the comment section, let us know why. But I think the Jets are about at a 5. They're very much in the middle, but I definitely wouldn't be sitting here if I were a Jets fan extremely confident with how things are going. So, again, I think right in the middle at 5. Now moving to the NFC, the Arizona Cardinals. They're in a very interesting situation as well. They're at the same level as the Jets in terms of panic. Now, I think that that's for a little bit different reasons. Cardinals, I varied between 5 and a 6 for them. All things considered, that loss to the Commanders, definitely a lot of red flags. But they were also in the game for a while. Things didn't get out of hand for them until that fourth quarter. And they were able to, hang around with all of these games that they ended up losing. It was getting out to a hot start against the Bills. Sure, they, got it handed to them a little bit in the second half of that game. But we saw bright spots. They were in that game against the Lions last week. They were able to contain the Lions' offense. Now, maybe it was more self-infliction on the Lions, which is very much in play. But the Cardinals are still alive in the mix of things. Now, they need to be drastically better. And as I'm talking this out, maybe I lean a little bit more on the 6 side. But I think that they're still, at least offensively, a very talented team that has an identity in establishing the run with James Conner. That there were a lot of concerns with Kyler Murray's play and the offensive line play in that game against the Commanders, but they're somewhere in that mix as well. They are probably the third best team in their division, at least as of this current moment. But that's also a pretty good NFC West, and I think that we could see 2 playoff teams out of there. So, and 5-6 range is where I would be at in terms of my concern level. The New Orleans Saints, talking about 2 straight losses after what was a red-hot start to the season. But I still think that they are actually a pretty good team. I came out of that game of them versus the Falcons and thought to myself, this team can be really stupid at times. The self-inflicted wounds were the difference maker for them. That being said, though, I thought they did outplay the Falcons for a lot of that game. It was just a couple moments. It's a muffed punt, and then it is, I would say, really, the pass interference was the self-inflicted. The pick 6 obviously didn't hurt them either, but that was just a football play. Nice play from Matt Judon and Troy Anderson to put that pick 6 together. But, they can put this together, I believe, and that offense is still very talented. The offensive line still got push, even without 2 of their starting linemen. Alvin Kamara's a dog. Chris Olave is really good as well, and I think that this is a team that is very much still in play for the division. I don't think that anybody in that division is head and shoulders above the other. Now, if you want to argue the Buccaneers, you have the high ground right now based off of how last week went. But I think that this division is just a toss-up from top to bottom. So I have them at a 3. There's a lot of areas I'd like to see them improve, absolutely, but the season is very much still alive for the Saints, and they've had some really high moments up to this point. Last team here, Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I had the Saints at a 3, I had the Eagles at a 4. The Eagles beat the Saints, but part of that is that even in that win against the Saints, a lot of self-inflicted issues from the coaching staff, which was already a massive concern coming into the season, is that coaching staff kind of been reinforced up to this point. And then this past week, they end up getting stomped by the Buccaneers. And it was Vic Fangio himself talking about how there were things that they needed to do differently. They tried to run more man than usual. They still have this obsession, it feels like, with pressing opposing wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. And I do think that their defense can be moved around. They seem to have a huge turnover issue right now. Jalen Hurts has a turnover in every game up to this point. And on top of all of this, following their loss against the Falcons when they lost week 2, I had them at a 3. The reason why they're just slightly more pushed into a little bit more panicked is the fact that they might not be the best team in their division. And same with the Saints, but, I think that the Commanders might just be a better version of what the Eagles are. Now, the Eagles have some more pieces, specifically at wide receiver and on the offensive line, but these are 2 teams right now, at least, I don't want to oversimplify things here, but the Commanders are an elite offense with a defense that I don't think is great, but played pretty well last week. The Eagles are, in theory, a very good offense, has the potential to be elite, absolutely, and a defense that I still don't really have that much confidence in. I suppose their moment of brightness was against the Saints last week, so it's not, the Eagles should still be the favorites in the NFC East, but now with the Commanders sort of ramping things up over the past couple weeks, it's now a conversation as to whether or not the Eagles are the top dogs in this division. And the NFC East is a division that I want to dive into furthermore here because it is very interesting with all of the storylines that are taking place. So we are going to be diving into that Commanders win over the Cardinals and talking about the entire divisional race from here. But before we do so, we have to take a quick break. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.